Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live Safari, live field trip to the hippo pools with me, Paula Kahumbu, and Dr. Dino Martins. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about who I am and why I'm in the show today. I am a conservationist and I love hippos. I adore hippos. I also love elephants and monkeys and lions and cheetahs and all the other animals. And I have been studying wildlife in Kenya for many, many years. And one of my great friends is Dino Martins, who is known as kind of like a Dr. Dolittle of Africa, because he knows all the animals and he knows especially the insects. And he writes and he draws and he tells incredible stories. And so we're here today to spend time listening to the story about Hannah, her adventures. Hannah is a hippo. And Dino wrote this story and illustrated it. So for all of you out there with kids, follow the story and let's be entertained by Dino. Now, Dino is no ordinary man. He has a PhD from Princeton University. Sorry, he has a PhD from Harvard University, and he now works with Mpala and Princeton University. And he runs this amazing research center in central Kenya, very close to the equator. Where there are loads of animals, and there's this wonderful, wonderful live camera on the hippo pools, which we can see right now. So keep watching and let us know in the chat when you see any hippos popping up. So now over to you, Dino.
Thanks, Paula, for that very, very kind introduction. And I wanted to say to everyone, welcome. We're so thrilled that people are joining us today from all over the world, from North America, from South America, from Europe, and from Africa. And so we're really, really excited that you get to join us on this field trip. A slight apology, we were going to broadcast just from the hippo pools, but thanks to a wonderful rainstorm that we just had, we are at the hippo pools, but we're also in separate locations because we wanted to make sure we would be able to stay connected and tell you about Hannah the hippo and her friends. Paula has been a very dear friend for a long time, and in a moment, we'll talk a little bit about hippos in general and some of the work that Paula and other people are doing with hippos and why they're so important. But I also would encourage you we have several links that we'll be sharing. And if you want to ask questions, please ask them in the Q&A section. And we'll be going through those as we can. So I see we have 100 people online now. So we'll get started with the story, and anyone else comes in, they can join us. So helpful Hannah Hippo. So if you haven't been able to, the link is available online for you to download the book, but we'll start the story. So the morning sunlight streamed down from a crisp, clear blue sky. All along the banks of the Ewaso Nyiro River, birds and butterflies danced about. The warm rays of the sun were welcome after the cold, rainy night. While most creatures were busy bustling about, searching for food, building nests, or just chasing each other about, a family of hippos was sleeping in the sunshine. On a gently sloping riverbank, a family of hippos lay basking in the sun. Apart from the occasional grunt or flick of an ear, the hippos were lying still. Hannah Hippo lay snuggled up next to her mother. She was one of the youngest and smallest members of her family. Their contented bellies were full of delicious fresh grass from last night's grazing. For a hippo, there's nothing better than lying about in the warm sunshine in the morning with a full belly. They were fat and shiny, lying in the sun. Hannah was very happy, snuggled up next, resting her head on one of her mother's fat, comfy legs. Just as she was dozing off again, Hannah Hippo felt something land on her back. It was Ollie, the oxpecker. "Good morning, Hannah," chirped Ollie loudly. "Good morning, Ollie," replied Hannah, yawning. "Come, Hannah, come. I want to show you something," said Ollie Oxpecker as he moved closer to Hannah's ears. Go away, Ollie, said Hannah. I'm enjoying my nap. Hannah, come on, I want to show you something, urged Ollie, now pecking at Hannah's ears. What is it? Asked Hannah, flicking her ears at him. There is something strange stuck in the mud, he replied. Ooh, something strange? Asked Hannah, sitting up. Now she was interested, for as hippos go, Hannah was one of the most curious members of her family, looking at things, learning about them, and exploring the world around her. Yes, come, let me show you, screeched Ollie. Ollie flew down to the edge of the river. Hannah followed as fast as her short, fat legs could. The river flowed steady and silent. The water shimmered in the sunlight. Dragonflies danced and chased each other to and fro. I don't see anything strange, said Hannah. Look down there, said Ollie, pointing at a lump in the mud. That looks just like a lump of mud, said Hannah. No, said Ollie. Look and listen. I heard it crying earlier. Hannah peered down at the lump of mud. Yes, it did look a bit strange, and yes, it moved a little too. Then Hannah thought she heard a little voice crying out. She moved closer as the voice was very, very soft. Help me, I'm stuck in the mud, squeaked the little voice. Hello, little one, said Hannah, and she pushed her nose into the mud and lifted up the talking lump. Freed from the mud, Hannah and Ollie peered closely at the little creature. It had a pointy beak, feathers, and large, bright, orange, gangly feet. It's a little chick, exclaimed Ollie. I was swept away during the rain, cried the little chick. Now I'm lost and I don't know how to get back to my nest. The little chick looked so helpless, cold, wet, and tired. It was shivering. Hannah could see that this little bird needed help finding its way back to its parents and nest. Hannah loved helping others. It made her feel warm and good, and that made her happy. Don't worry, said Hannah. We are going to help you. We need to find out where your nest and parents are, said Ollie. The little chick was completely lost. It could not remember where its parents and nest were along the river. Hannah saw how frightened the chick felt, and so she gently lifted the little bird on her broad nose and lowered him into the edge of the water, so that they could wash the mud off his feathers. Then she carried him back up into the sunshine so that he could dry and warm up. Now, Hannah Hippo and Ollie Oxpecker had to figure out how they were going to help. There were lots of birds that lived along the river, so surely the chick must belong to one of those families. They decided that they would first ask the Egyptian geese who lived nearby. Lifting the little chick onto her nose and with Ollie perched on her back, Hannah walked down to the sandbank in the middle of the river where the Egyptian geese lived. The nest was in a large old acacia tree hollow, but now their chicks had left the nest and were often seen swimming alongside their parents. As Hannah approached, the geese honked out loudly. Hello, Hannah, are you coming to visit us? Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Goose, said Hannah. Are you or anyone you know missing a little chick? The geese gathered around, honking and hissing excitedly. My, oh my, honked Mrs. Egyptian Goose. Can you count our goslings, Papa Goose? Honked Mrs. Egyptian Goose. All 5 goslings present and accounted for, my dear, he replied. Hannah, it appears that we have all of our chicks, said Mrs. Egyptian Goose. Well then, perhaps you can help us identify this little chick, asked Hannah. This little chick is lost and can't remember where his nest is. The two Egyptian geese waddled up and peered closely. My, oh my, honked the Egyptian geese. That is a strange-looking chick. It has such long toes. I'm sorry, said Papa Goose, but we don't recognize him. Perhaps you can ask our neighbors, the blacksmith plovers. Hannah and Ollie thanked the Egyptian geese and set off towards where the blacksmith plovers lived. The blacksmith plovers had made their home among some reeds growing at the edge of the river in a quiet and peaceful spot from which they ventured out each day. As Hannah approached, with Ollie perched on her back and the little chick perched on her nose, the blacksmith plovers stood up and watched in amazement. Bobbing their heads up and down in excitement, the blacksmith plovers called out to Hannah. Good morning, Hannah Hippo. Good morning, Ollie Oxpecker, they called. Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Plover, replied Hannah and Ollie. Calling out with their distinctive metallic cry, the blacksmith plovers ran to meet Hannah and Ollie. Hannah explained that they had found a lost chick and were trying to help him find his way back home. She asked the plovers if they were missing a chick, but they said that they had just one chick who was safely hidden in the reeds by the riverbank. The blacksmith plovers could see how disappointed Hannah, Ollie, and the little chick were. Now, now, clucked the plovers, no need to be sad. We will see if we can help figure out how to get this little chick back home. I saw a lot of chicks walking past yesterday, said Mrs. Plover. They were running after their family, the vulture and guinea fowls. They will be back soon, said Mrs. Plover. Why don't you all rest here in the shade and wait for them? Hannah, Ollie, and the little chick sat down to wait. The sun climbed higher and higher in the sky. The day grew warmer. Dragonflies and butterflies danced faster and faster around them. A loud cackling noise could be heard in the distance, getting louder and louder. Mrs. Plover called out to Hannah, the vulturine guinea fowls are on their way. Hannah sat up. From a distance, a long line of vulturine guinea fowls appeared. She watched them and marveled at their colorful spotted feathers and the brilliant blue bibs on their chests. The guinea fowl moved swiftly down to the water's edge, where they lowered their heads and started to drink from the river. Hannah approached them slowly, since she did not want to startle them. Excuse me, dear vulturine guinea fowl, said Hannah. Would you by any chance be missing one of your chicks? The guinea fowls all turned around to look at her. They all started speaking at once, cackling and shrieking as loudly as they could. Hannah and Ollie tried repeating their question, but no one could hear them above the din. Then marching down came the chief vulturine guinea fowl. He stood tall, his bright red eyes gleamed as he lifted up his head and shouted louder than anyone else, What is all this noise about? The flock fell silent. Hannah approached a bit closer. I'm sorry to trouble you, but we were wondering whether you were missing one of your chicks, she said. Chief Guinea Fowl cackled loudly and asked, Well, young lady, why would you ask such a question? Why are you interrupting our water drinking? We are on a tight schedule, you know. What? Now speak up. Hannah was a bit nervous talking to Chief Guinea Fowl and was just thinking about how to explain when Ollie flew down and chipped in. Hannah and I are trying to help a lost chick find his way home. Lost chick, you say? Cackled the guinea fowl. Yes, we've asked the Egyptian geese and the blacksmith plovers who recommended that we speak to you. Sounds a bit fishy if you ask me, clucked Chief Guinea Fowl. We are trying to help this lost chick, replied Hannah. Yes, they are trying to help a lost chick, shrieked the blacksmith plovers, who had come running up to see what all the noise was about. Hannah went on to explain to the guinea fowl what had happened so far that day. She then fetched the little chick and placed him on the ground in front of all the guinea fowls. They gathered around, peering closely. Whispering and gently prodding, they chattered away. Not one of ours, not one of ours, they cackled in unison. Look at those feet, nothing like a guinea fowl's. The chief guinea fowl once again stood tall and shrieked louder than anyone else. And they all fell silent and bowed. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid this is not one of our chicks, he said to Hannah, as kindly as he could. He pointed up at a thick clump of grass as there emerged a whole line of fluffy, speckled little guinea fowl chicks. All present and accounted for? Called the chief guinea fowl. Yes, sir, all chicks present, replied the flock. Chief guinea fowl turned to Hannah and said, I'm sorry, but we can't help you. As you can see, we have all our chicks. We don't recognize your little lost friend. Hannah and Ollie looked down sadly. It seemed like they were never going to be able to find the lost chick's nest and reunite him with his family. Chief Guinea Fowl noticed how sad they were. Despite being a very formal bird, he had a very soft heart. So he decided to do what he could to help them. You are brave and kind, said Chief Guinea Fowl. Let me see if I can help ask more creatures if they know who this lost chick belongs to. With that, he flew up into a tall acacia tree and at the top of his voice called out to all that could hear. Now, guinea fowls are very, very loud, and the loudest of all is the chief guinea fowl. So the message about the lost chick was told and told again all along the river. Hannah and Ollie settled down next to their little friend and waited in the shade until word had spread far and wide. Many different creatures came by to see the little lost chick. Some ants and aardvarks, many butterflies and bush babies, a few egrets and elephants, several hornbills and hyrax, a couple of kingfishers and kudus, 2 otters and an oryx, a pair of zebras and a zorilla too. Hannah and Ollie spoke to them one and all. She asked again and again, does anyone know who this little chick belongs to? Sadly, no one seemed to be able to solve the puzzle of where the little chick came from. Hannah and Ollie waited and watched. Every time a new creature appeared, they leapt up hopeful that finally it would solve the mystery. But no one had an answer. No one seemed to know to whom this little chick belonged. The day grew hotter as the afternoon wore on. Hannah decided to take a dip in the river to cool down. Hippos have very sensitive skin that needs to be kept cool and moist. Hannah waded into the water. As she settled down, the wonderful water flowed around her. It tickled her toes and made her skin feel good. She was just dozing off when she felt something tickling her nose. Hannah opened her eyes and noticed a beautiful red dragonfly perched on her nose. Good afternoon, little dragonfly. I'm Hannah Hippo, she said. Good afternoon, Hannah. I'm Red Dropwing, buzzed the dragonfly. Hannah smiled. She had a good feeling about this new friend she was making. Red Dropwing's voice was really, really soft, but he had something very, very important to say. I'm here to help you get the lost chick home, hummed the dragonfly. I heard Chief Guinea Fowl shouting his message earlier as I was flying by. Every day I travel up and down this river. I see many things, I hear many things, I learn many things, whispered the dragonfly. I know where the little lost chick's nest is, he declared in the loudest little voice that he could manage. The dragonfly went on to explain, there was some heavy rain last night and the river flooded. In a hidden bend in the river, there was a very special nest woven by two rare, beautiful birds. This nest floated at the water's edge. It was woven into a tangled bank with a special secret entrance that was hidden in the water. This nest belonged to very special birds called Mr. and Mrs. Finfoot. As the water rose, the nest flooded and the little chick was swept away. The baby Finfoot's parents had been searching for him, the dragonfly whispered sadly. Hannah could barely contain her excitement. She rushed out of the water and woke up Ollie and the little chick, crying out excitedly, wake up, we found out where your nest is. Red Dropwing, the dragonfly just told me. Come, let's get you home, said Hannah as she lowered her nose to let the chick climb onto her head. With Ollie flying alongside, she ran back down to the river. The dragonfly was waiting for them. Follow me, he said. I will show you how to get to the Finfoot nest, but you are going to have to swim up to the bend in the river. Lead the way, replied Hannah. I will carry the little chick and follow you in the water. Red Dropwing Dragonfly flew up into the air. Ollie and helped shout directions to Hannah Hippo as she swam. The little chick held on to Hannah's neck with his big orange toes. The dragonfly flew swiftly up the river. Hannah had to swim with all her might to keep up. Her short, fat legs paddled as fast as they could go. The current in the river was pretty strong for a small hippo, but Hannah was determined. Hannah swam and swam. She swam past the blacksmith plovers resting among the reeds. She swam past the Egyptian geese sunning themselves on the sandbank. She swam past the other hippos asleep in the river. Hannah Hippo kept swimming and swimming until she reached the bend in the river. Just as she thought that she couldn't swim anymore, she heard the dragonfly above her call out, "We're almost there." By the bend in the river, the trees arched over the water, and the tangled bank was covered in creepers and flowers, all woven together. Red Dropwing danced in the air above them and sang, "Let me see if I can find the Finfoots." Deep in the tangled bank, Mr. and Mrs. Finfoot sat sadly, sighing, wondering if they were ever going to see their young one again. The dragonfly fluttered between the flowers, calling out, "Finfoots, Finfoots, don't be shy, don't hide away. Hannah Hippo is here to play. She's brought a gift for you to see, so come out now and dance with glee." Ever shy and secretive, the Finfoots peeked cautiously out from their tangled bank. What they saw made their hearts fill with joy. For there, clinging with all his might onto Hannah's head using his giant orange feet, was their lost chick. Singing with joy, Mr. and Mrs. Finfoot emerged from their hiding place. "Our lost chick is back safely," they cried out as they greeted their little chick. The baby Finfoot danced about and climbed onto his dad's back. He settled down and sang out, thank you, Red Dropwing. Thank you, Ollie Oxpecker. Thank you, Hannah Hippo." Mr. and Mrs. Finfoot tilted their heads back and in unison sang a duet in honor of the three heroes. Hannah smiled, forgetting how tired she was. Ollie flew in happy circles, and the Red Dropwing danced with joy. The sun shimmered on the water. Hannah's little heart filled with joy. It felt so good to help someone. It was wonderful to see the baby chick reunited with his parents. The sun was low in the sky now, so it was time for Hannah to return to her family. Hannah and Ollie said goodbye to the Finfoot family. The Red Dropwing Dragonfly fluttered away among the flowers, singing softly to himself. Hannah floated back down the river. Ollie flew in circles above her, crying out, "Hannah Hippo is a hero. Hannah Hippo is a hero." All along the banks of the Ewaso Nyiro River, all the different creatures echoed his call. Hannah Hippo is a hero. Hannah Hippo is a hero. Hannah floated back down to join her family. Soon she was back, snoozing in the setting sun, resting her head on her mother's big, broad back. Tired from her adventure and all the excitement, Hannah Hippo fell fast asleep. And that's the story of Hannah helping friends, meeting new friends, and learning about them. So we'll pause there and see if there are any questions.
That was a wonderful story, Dino. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to come and listen. That was so beautiful. I have my own little hippo here. This is my new Hannah Hippo. And I noticed there are a lot of questions in the Q&A. And I'm going to start with the hippo questions because I think hippos are quite a mysterious animal. Most people who don't come from Africa won't know as much about them as we do because we live with them. And this story is about a very special river, and there are lots of hippos in this river. Can you tell us a bit more about hippos and what does the word hippopotamus really mean?
So yes, hippos are these amazing animals that are only found in Africa today. But some million years ago, there were lots of different hippos, and hippos were found in Europe and in Madagascar and in other places as well. But today, there's only hippos in Africa, and they live in the water and on the land. So hippos go back and forth, but they need to be near water. And you can see at the moment we have our camera at the hippo pool, and the hippos are in the water because it's still during the day. So they spend the day in the water and they come out at night to feed.
So it was so lovely to look at all the pictures and all the drawings and follow the story and see that there are places where children can color in. They can color in Hannah and the other friends of Hannah's that are in the story.
They can. So we've shared the book. It's free to download from the website or from, we'll post a link as well for it. And you can share it with your friends. Please do so. Enjoy the story. But I deliberately didn't color in all the drawings. I made line drawings of a lot of the birds in particular, as well as of Hannah and her friends. And I'd love for children to fill in the drawings, color them in yourselves, be creative. There's a lot of space. We left some blank spaces for people to draw in their own animals as well and use your imagination. And that's a very good way to learn. And when I started learning to draw, I just started by, drawing things that I was looking at and reading and seeing around me. And so it's a great way to learn about nature is by drawing and looking at things.
That's so wonderful. Thank you for that. I'm going to make sure that all my friends get the book and they read them to each other and they share the book and color in the pictures and send them to you. So I'm going to give you three questions from Suhani Patel, who asks, how long can hippos stay in water? Why do hippos go in water? And is Hannah real?
So hippos stay in water during the day when it's hot because their skin is very sensitive and they want to stay out of the sun. It's also a safe place for them. They can go underwater. They can hold their breath for a long period of time, up to 9 or 10 minutes if they need to, usually a few shorter period than that. And is Hannah real? So Hannah is a story, but it's based on the observations I've made of hippos here at Mpala. And if you go to the Mpala live webcam, you will see lots of hippos, and the hippos are live right now. You can see them swimming around in the hippo pools.
So the next question that I'm going to ask is, I'm just going to start with the hippo questions from Ramiro. What do hippos eat? What is their diet?
That's a very great question. Hippos eat grass. They are like cows and like elephants. They feed on grass and vegetation, plants, but they come out of the water at night and they feed during the night. And they don't pick the grass with their teeth. Elephants use their trunks to grab grass and cows use their tongue and their teeth. Hippos use their big fat lips to pull the grass up. And their teeth are actually not for pulling the grass. They then chew them with their back teeth. They swallow the grass. And hippos are really interesting because some animals that eat grass have multiple stomachs, and we call them ruminants. And other animals that eat grass have a complex digestive system that bacteria help them digest their food. And you usually have one or the other. Hippos have both. So they are like animals we call ruminants because they have chambers to their stomachs, but they also have bacteria that live in their stomach that help them digest the food. So hippos are really, really special when they feed. And because they all feed together in one area, they create a beautiful thing called a Hippo Lon. That's because they keep mowing the grass with their lips every night and keep it nice and short. And lots of other animals come and use those spaces. But the really important thing with the hippo diet is when they eat the grass, they also have to poop the grass. And the hippo poo is really, really important. It's the most wonderful stuff. The hippos go back into the river and they spray their poo, they splash it and move it all over the place with their tails. They actually use their tail like a fan to spread the poop as widely as they can. That's to mark their territory and say, I'm here, I'm a hippo, pay attention to me. But that poo goes into the water and lots of different insects and other creatures, fish and frogs and other amphibians and many, many different species are connected to the hippos that way.
So hippos are huge, right? They are nearly as big as a rhino, and some of them are even bigger than the rhinos. And because they're so big, if they're out walking around in the grass, you'll see them. But most of the time, when we're awake, they're in the water, and they're quite hard to see. So hippos have a very special way of communicating. So Dino, I'm going to call, and you're going to be the other hippo, and you're going to call so that all the hippos know where each other is. And then they open their mouth really wide.
Really wide.
Do that? Why do they do that?
So you will see when hippos are together like they are right now at the hippo pool, you'll often see one or two hippos lift their head up and yawn. And they show these amazing tusks, teeth that they basically have. And it's several things. It's one saying, I'm here. Hippos are territorial. They live in family groups. So male hippos will often lift up their heads and open their mouths and then show the others that, hey, I'm here, I'm in charge, don't mess with me.
So it's just amazing because you can study hippos and learn so much about what's going on along the river, and you don't have to come all the way to Kenya. You can just watch from the webcam at the hippo pool. But the hippos have a huge role in the ecosystem. They have lots of friends, and you've been talking about Ollie. And a lot of people are asking, but who is Ollie? What kind of an animal is Ollie?
Ollie is an oxpecker, which is a kind of bird, a really special bird. And oxpeckers are birds that live in Africa as well. They're unique to Africa. And they are very special because they have what they're very close friends. They have a relationship with many animals where they go and help the animals. They walk and climb and perch on them. And you'll often see, if you look at the animals on the camera, for example, the hippos in the morning will be lying out and there will be oxpeckers hopping all over them. And what the oxpeckers are doing is helping pick off ticks and other parasites. So they are providing a very useful service to the hippos. We can see one of the hippos yawning right now. And basically, that's the oxpecker is getting food and the hippo is getting a free cleaning service and a nice scratch on its back as well.
That's fantastic. Well, we have lots of questions. I don't even know which ones to ask, but I'm going to tell you that last question came from Noah Chin. So, how many types of hippos are there in Africa, Dino?
Okay, that's a great question. So today there are really only two species of hippos. There's the hippopotamus, which we're familiar with, that is found throughout Africa. And you can see one yawning again now on the cam. And they're huge. They are massive. The males are bigger than the females. They're distributed throughout the continent of Africa, wherever there are freshwater rivers and lakes. They do need to live close to water. They used to be more widespread. They occurred in the Nile and in Egypt. And one of the ancient gods that the Egyptians worshipped was a hippo. Hippos are extinct in Egypt now and only found in Africa, sort of south of the Sahara. There's a second hippo species that lives in West Africa called the Pygmy Hippo, who doesn't grow quite as big, is very, very rare, and is only found in a few countries, mainly in Liberia, living in rivers and streams in the rainforest.
Okay, well, we have a question about the habitat. Actually, there are a number of questions about the habitats. There is one question here that is, how do you guys keep the hippos in their habitat?
That's a great question. So it's really important that hippos are able to survive. And in order for them to do so, they need water. They need fresh water. And if there's no water, they can't survive. They would not be able to live anywhere else. So first of all, we need to protect rivers, because if we don't have healthy rivers and healthy streams and the healthy forests that feed those rivers and streams, we wouldn't have hippos and we wouldn't have all these other creatures, but we also wouldn't have water. And there is no life without water. That's both for people and for hippos. The other thing about hippos is we protect them as part of our conservation efforts throughout Kenya and other African countries. And the most important thing that I want all the children paying attention today is, as Paula said, we need to learn more about them so that we can study them and love them and understand them. And so the most important thing to protect hippos are you, the kids who are watching today, because if you love hippos and learn about them, you will be able to protect them.
Okay, so thank you, Dino. That's really fascinating. I'm going to try and get through the questions now because there are so many amazing questions. Now, this one is from Darcy Mayer Domba. Are hippos stronger than T-Rex?
That's a great question. I'm not sure you can see another hippo opening its mouth. The hippo, I think, was saying yes, that it would take on a T-Rex. Definitely, it depends what we're measuring. If we're measuring the strength of the hippo's jaw and how it can bite with those very strong teeth, yes, I would say they're definitely stronger. But in terms of overall size, the T-Rex was much bigger. It was a dinosaur. But hippos and T-Rex have not been on the planet at the same time. So dinosaurs went extinct about 100 million years ago. Hippos have been around for sort of 20, 30 million.
Okay, we're going to get to the questions about all the friends of Hannah, but I'm going to finish with a few more hippo questions. So from Yolanda Miranda, do hippos have a name for the groups of them?
That's a great question. So what is a group of hippos called? I think the one answer is a pod of hippos. And a pod is because other animals that live in groups that live in water, like whales and dolphins, are also that same noun is used to describe them.
Okay. And how long do hippos live for?
That's a great question. So hippos actually, compared to many animals, live quite long. It takes the young several years before they become mature. They live with their families. They're very dependent on their mothers. The mothers and the father hippo protect. They're very fierce and protective of their young. And hippos can live for a decade or even longer, a couple of decades even in some cases. Hippos, like those that are in places that are protected, like in sanctuaries, and Paula can tell us about a hippo she was involved with called Owen. Often hippos will live quite long when they're in zoos or in sanctuaries.
So I'll show everyone the book that I wrote, which is a different kind of a book, because this one is a true story. And this one is called Owen and Mzee. And Owen is a baby hippo who got lost, actually. The hippo got lost this time. And Owen got lost and he was saved and rescued. And this beautiful giant tortoise became his best friend. And we're going to tell that story next time. But let's keep going on with Hannah and her amazing adventure. So, do hippos have predators? Should Hannah be worried?
That's a great question. And the answer is hippos very rarely have predators because they are living in families and they are very protective. The adult hippos are extremely strong because they're in the water. It's very difficult for predators to get to them. They will occasionally have predators, lions, for example, and very rarely crocodiles, which live in the water. But that's unusual. Mostly the hippos don't have a lot of predators.
Okay. And there's a question here from Suhani Patel. Are hippos thick-skinned?
Hippos have an amazingly sensitive skin. On their back, actually, the skin is not that thick. It's really, really thin and really sensitive. But on their sides and on their belly, there's a lot of fat under near their skin. And so the skin is much thicker there. Hippos produce a very strange kind of sweat. It's it's oily and almost waxy red. And it is what gives them that shiny appearance. And if you ever get to see a hippo and you look up close or watch one through binoculars, you will notice that there are these beads of oily sweat that form on their skin.
I think it's their sunblock because they need to be protected from the sun.
They do.
So a couple of people, including Grace Thiaka, have asked, are hippos dangerous?
Grace, thank you. That's a very important question. And the answer is yes. Hippos are considered one of the most dangerous animals because many people often encounter hippos at night where if they live close to where people are. And today here in Kenya, we have places like Lake Naivasha, which is a beautiful freshwater lake, but there are lots of people living around the lake and a lot of hippos in the lake. The same happens in places like Lake Victoria, where people and hippos share a habitat. So it's a real challenge for people and hippos to live together. But if we give each other space, one of the amazing things is, because hippos spend most of their time during the day in the water, they can actually live sometimes quite close to people without causing too many problems.
And amazingly, sometimes they are very, very friendly towards people, especially when they get orphaned when they're small. They are one of the most amazing, friendly, and playful animals. But it's true, if there are hippos around, you shouldn't go outdoors. We have two related questions. One is from Kaya Matsubara. How much do hippos weigh? And the other question is from Misha. How big are baby hippos? Can I carry it?
So hippos they can weigh over a ton, even up to 1.5 tons. That's, a big male. A baby hippo is not as heavy. When they're very, very young, if you're really strong, you could probably just about lift one up. It probably weighs sort of 20 to 40 kilos, about 100 pounds. But you'd have to be really strong to lift even a baby hippo up.
And they're quite slippery. It'll be hard to hold on to it. And they will try to run away anyway. Okay, so we have an anonymous attendee who asks, and I think I know why they've asked this question, because the hippos like to spend time outside basking in the sun. So the question is, are hippos warm-blooded or cold-blooded?
That's a good question. Hippos, like all mammals, are warm-blooded, but they live in environments where air temperatures are variable, and the more time they spend in the morning warming up, that means the less energy they're having to burn. They're not shivering to keep warm or not having to move around. So when they're basking in the sun, they've fed the whole night, so they're warming up. And then as it gets hotter, now they want to stay cool. So now they go into the water, they stay in the water.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go now to the friends of Hannah. I know that there are lots and lots of questions, so don't worry, everyone. I can see all your questions about the hippos, and I am going to get to them if we have time, but I don't want us to miss out talking about Hannah's friends. Several people have asked about the little baby bird, and I'm going to see if I can find the name of the person who asked the question. Haley White. What kind of a bird is the chick? What's the name of the species? Because quite a few people didn't really hear it very well.
The little chick is a bird called the fin foot. Fin, like a fish's fins, foot. So it has feet that are not just webbed like a duck's feet. They actually, on the side of the toes, have extra fins, basically, because the fin foot is a very rare and special bird that lives along the rivers. It's very shy. But again, if you go to the live cam, you can occasionally see a fin foot swimming up and down the river. And they live in the vegetation next to the river. They weave an amazing nest. And the finfoot's quite a large bird. They're about that big. And they live in the water. They swim on the surface of the water, but their nest hangs in the water, and they enter the nest from underwater. So they can dive into the water. They eat crustaceans and frogs and little fish and dragonfly larvae and other things that live in the water.
And it sounds like they live in pairs, just with the mother and the father.
That's correct. And both parents look after the young, and the father finfoot actually carries the baby finfoot on his back.
What a wonderful dad. Okay, so do you know, there's another bird that we talked about quite a lot in the book, and it's a very, very beautiful and colorful bird, the Guinea Fowl. Julia Wahinya wants to know, what is a Guinea Fowl?
Guinea fowl is an amazing bird. It's related to the chicken. So guinea fowls and chickens and francolins and spur fowls, they're all together in one family of birds. And the guinea fowls live in flocks, and they're a really amazing bird. They have a very sophisticated way of living in a family, surviving in a difficult environment. And you can go online. We can share a link to Dr. Paula has made a wonderful series called Wildlife Warriors. And one of those episodes is about the vulturine guinea fowls and the amazing Kenyan scientists who study them. So we can share that link for you to learn more about the guinea fowls. And they're very loud and very noisy.
Okay, so Hope Caldwell is asking, do hippos hibernate? And quite a few people, and I'm going to give you some other names like Leora, Kirk, and a couple of other people asked, how long do hippos sleep for?
Those are great questions. So hippos don't really hibernate. They will, when it's the dry season and the rivers or lakes start shrinking or going down, they will gather in larger numbers and stay even in just mud. It's very stressful for them. They won't move around much, but they're not hibernating. They're still awake, but trying to survive. And hippos will sleep as much as they can. So they have to spend most of the night feeding. So they spend a lot of the day sleeping.
Okay, so they spend a lot of time sleeping and they spend a lot of time with their friends, the birds. And so we have a wonderful question from Ewaso Nyiro. Do hippos and the birds that perch on them have a mode of communication? Do they actually interact and communicate with each other?
Yes, they do. Hippos and birds that come and perch on them will communicate. You will even sometimes see a hippo rolling over or opening its mouth in some cases to let one of the birds come and pick at something that's bothering it. So hippos and birds do communicate, and many different animals can communicate. We as humans communicate using language and sound, and we use our hands and gestures, and we can write and tell stories. But animals and birds and insects and even plants, all creatures can communicate in different ways. Even if they can't talk directly, they have different ways of communicating with each other.
And I want to show you a picture from the book, Owen and Mzee. They also communicate how much they like each other. Now, Mzee is a tortoise, he's not a bird, but there you have a mammal and a reptile communicating with each other with their body language, and they touch and they sniff and they used to prod each other and walk around together and sometimes even make funny sounds to each other. So Dino, there are still lots and lots of questions about hippos, but one of the questions that several people asked is about whether they are endangered.
Are hippos endangered? The answer is yes, they are, sadly. They're not as endangered as some animals like rhinos, for example, but in terms of the numbers of hippos, there are about 400,000 elephants left in the continent of Africa, but it's thought that there are only about 100,000 hippos left. And that's because hippos live in water, and when we either pump water out of the rivers, cut down forests, with climate change, many of the rivers and lakes are drying up, and the hippos are struggling to survive. So hippos are endangered by human activity. And luckily, in many places in Kenya and in other countries, there are national parks and reserves. Rivers are protected, wetlands are protected, and hippos live in them. And what scientists working at Mpala and elsewhere have found is that if you protect hippos and protect the rivers, animals like fish, which are really, really important sources of food for people and for birds and other animals, do better. So hippos make healthy rivers, and healthy rivers produce more fish, which support more people and more wildlife.
So one of the questions is really about climate change, and have we experienced a drought that would threaten the hippos or cause the river to dry up and affect the hippos at Mpala? Have you ever had such a situation?
Yes, climate change is very, very real in this part of the world. And we have experienced a drought where the hippo pool started drying up. We were very worried about the hippos. Luckily, Mpala has also built some water reservoirs, and we've dug some pans so that those can hold water. Some of the hippos were able to move and go and live in those, and some of the hippos stayed in the hippo pool. But as the water went down, so did the food, and there wasn't enough food for the hippos. So at one point, we actually had to take hay from one part of the conservancy and give it to the hippos, just so that they would survive. And we've only had to do that once, but we did that. And that's something that, so many people say, why did you do that? You're interfering with nature. It's not the right thing to do. But the fact is, if we had not helped the hippos, and other conservationists were also doing the same for other animals, we would have lost those animals. And so to protect them during droughts, just like we have to help people who are suffering, we should help animals as well.
Thank you for that, Dino. So I want to remind all the young people and all the young people at heart who are watching to make sure that they keep watching the webcam, because there's a lot of activity going on in the hippo pools. And you can learn so much about nature and just, I don't know, just have such a lovely day watching the animals in the hippo pool, even if you're half a world away. But the children can also take your book, print out the pictures and color them in and send them back so that you can actually share those with other children around the world. So we want all the children to download the book, color in the pictures, send us pictures of your colored in pictures, and share the book with all your friends, all your classmates, all your family. What can children do to help hippos? If climate change and the rivers are really affecting the hippos, what can our children do to help?
You can do so much to help hippos, whether you're a child or an adult. The first thing is learn about them. Look at the live cam, visit the website. Everybody's, at home now, but you can still do so much. The other thing is you can get involved. Share your pictures, share your stories, teach your friends about them. And the third thing that you can do, if you can, is to support organizations like Wildlife Direct, which Paula runs, and others who are doing conservation and working with children in Kenya and in many other countries around the world. And we will be sharing links for all these. And you can see now, actually after this, we have to end in about 5 or 10 minutes, but you can stay, the live cam is still on and you can see the hippos are there. I think somebody can even see some elephants there. So there's a lot of wildlife. Enjoy the live cam.
Yeah, and everyone who's watching this, even if you don't have hippos in your backyard or in the woods near you or in the parks near you, you can go out and learn to draw all those animals, just like Dr. Dino, and you can start writing your own stories and telling your own stories about the animals in your own neighborhood. That would be really good fun. Okay, I'm going to ask a few more questions because there are lots of questions. Dino, how many teeth does a hippo have?
Oh,
and
my,
do they eat meat?
That's
that
a
was
great
from
question.
Haley White.
You know what? I don't remember how many teeth a hippo has. Paula might remember, but I do remember that they have very special teeth. They basically, the incisors are very long and they use that. It's more for display. They're not using their teeth so much to feed on vegetation because they use their lips. But then in the back of their mouth, they have molars. And those are important teeth for all animals that eat plants. They use those teeth to crush the grass and the vegetation before they swallow it, because that breaks it up into small pieces, which makes it easy for them to digest, just like we have to chew our food.
Yeah, and hippos, you said that they've got these really big teeth because they display and they show their territoriality, but they also will chase off any intruders who come near. And if an intruder sees how big their teeth are, they might, get away quick before they get a bite, because a bite would hurt quite a lot.
Good.
So in the hippo pools, we've seen there are lots of hippos and they're all doing something, going underwater and they're coming back up and then they're going underwater. So let's start with who is in the hippo family? Is it a mommy and a daddy and lots of babies, or what does a hippo family look like?
A hippo family consists of a dad, a bull hippo, and the bulls are slightly larger than the females, many different females, and they're young. And often on the fringes, young males will hang out. So they're very territorial. They live in very close-knit groups. The male hippo is very defensive of the family, and they will often have a certain pool that they like to be in. That's why the Mpala live cam is in a particular location, because we know that the hippos are there pretty much all of the time.
Well, sometimes crocodiles come into the same area as hippos. Can a crocodile kill a hippo?
Very rarely. Crocodiles can attack baby hippos. They would never mess with an adult hippo. And the hippos would defend their family from the crocodiles if they tried. And you can see the cam is showing you some of the hippos right now.
So some of the children don't know the difference between some of the teeth. So can you explain what the molars are?
So the incisors are those, and the molars are your back teeth, the bigger, flatter ones. And in hippos, they're really big and flat.
Good for grinding. You don't want to get your fingers in there. So hippos are in the water. We can see them going down. What are they doing, Dino? Can they swim, really?
They basically, when they're in the water, hippos can swim, but they don't swim all of the time. What they're actually doing is they're resting their feet on the bottom if they're big enough, or the youngsters are resting their back on the backs of their parents or friends. And in deeper water, they'll actually even stand on their hind legs and keep their eyes and nostrils. And you'll notice the hippo is really designed to live in the water. They can hide almost their entire body, but keep just their eyes and their nostrils right at the surface of the water, and then look and smell and listen, and their ears as well, to what's going on. And you'll often see hippos flicking their ears. And if you watch the live cam during the day, you'll often see them flick, 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 and then go underwater. And that's because there's another very special animal that lives with the hippos called the hippo fly. And the hippo fly bites the hippos. And the hippos don't like that. And so you'll see them flicking their ears, going underwater to hide from the hippo fly.
So the word hippopotamus comes from a Greek word which means river horse. And they really are like horses. If you ever see them underwater, they gallop just like a horse. And they rise up on their back legs, although they must look more like a very fat horse without a mane. But that's where the name hippopotamus comes from. There is one person called, it's an anonymous attendee who wants to know, how do you keep the hippos in that habitat? Do you have special fences to keep hippos contained?
We don't fence in our hippos. We're very lucky at Mpala. Mpala is part of a bigger landscape in Laikipia, where all of the neighboring areas, which are both private land, conservancies, community land, group ranches, all of them love wildlife and coexist with wildlife. So we are lucky that we can allow the hippos to roam free. But because the hippos need to be in places in the river that are deep enough and permanent enough for them with enough food, they tend to stay there by themselves. So we're very lucky at the moment to have space and habitat. And that's one of the really special things about Kenya. Kenya still has wildlife that is really wild, that's living as it has for millions of years. In some places that isn't easy because people and development and agriculture and infrastructure are affecting wildlife, but we still have wildlife and we still have wild spaces. And for young people in particular, that is one of the most precious things on the planet. It's more precious than all the money, all the art, all the gold, all the food, all the chocolate is nothing compared to how precious nature is. And so we really need nature, and it belongs to you. It belongs to everybody on this planet. We all share it. It's our life support system, but it's something that it's worth keeping around because it means we have other creatures that we can learn about, we can learn more about ourselves, we can learn about our environments, and we couldn't survive without them.
Well, the story about Hannah and Hannah's friends is just amazing, because if you look at Hannah, she's a baby hippo and she looks just like a baby hippo. But the little chick that she helps to rescue, nobody can tell what kind of a bird it is. So how come, do you know, in all the birds, the Egyptian geese, the Guinea fowls, the finfoots, their babies don't look anything like their mothers? What's going on?
So when birds lay eggs, and young birds, chicks hatch out of those eggs. So they undergo a lot of change just as they grow up. And it's a very interesting thing. In some animals, the babies look very similar to the adults. In others, they don't. They develop and they change and grow, and people do the same. Although baby humans do look like adult humans. But interestingly enough, baby baboons don't look very much like adult baboons. You know, they look much more like human babies than baboons. And as they grow older, they develop the longer nose and the big teeth and the sort of different looking appearance. In birds, there's different kinds of birds. Some birds, the chicks are independent from almost the time they hatch. They learn to feed for themselves.
I can hear it.
You hear the hippos agreeing with Paula. And in other birds, it takes a long time for the chicks. They have to be looked after by their parents. And those are species like the Egyptian geese and the plover and the finfoot. The parents have to spend time feeding and caring for their chicks, who are very special and very precious. And if they didn't do that, we wouldn't have more birds.
Well, that is just fascinating. And I think we need another book all about the birds and another book all about the butterflies, because there were so many beautiful drawings of butterflies throughout the book. And we don't have time to talk about all of them right now. It's actually 7 minutes past 6 here in Kenya. It's early evening. Dino, do we have any more time?
We need to end in a couple of minutes because we'd actually scheduled this for 1 hour, but I can see all the wonderful, wonderful questions and comments. We will follow up with you, so please send them in and we'll figure out a way. We will share links, look at the live cam, but we need to do something today's a very, very special day for someone who's here. So it is Dr. Paula's birthday today. So we're also going to wish her happy birthday. And I dedicate the story of Hannah the Hippo to Paula. And for Paula's birthday, Paula has said, if anyone can support Wildlife Direct, they can do that. We can share the link. Please do so. So thank you everyone for joining us from all over the world. Sorry we didn't get to all your amazing questions, but thank you so much for your questions. And thank you, Paula, for being such a wonderful co-host. And thank you, Hippos, for performing.
Well, Dino, I'm really looking forward to another amazing story from you. I appreciate your birthday wishes. Every day is like a birthday when you have animals around you like this. It's we're so lucky we still have these incredible animals in our neighborhoods. And I really look forward to our next session. Thank you. And thank you everyone for coming and listening and spending this time with us and asking all these great questions. We can't wait to see all the drawings that the children are going to send us. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks everybody. Bye.